Welcome everyone to another episode of Kiwi Talks. My guest today has served in politics for a very long time, and she is currently running for the mayor candidacy. I would like to welcome Paula Southgate.
How you very much. I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming through. One of the things I want to know before we get into the main stuff is why you chose to get into politics in the first place, because obviously you've served for a very long time, not just in the Hamilton City Council, but in the Waikato Regional Council as well.
That's right, 15 years at Regional Council.
Yeah. So what made you get into it in the first place?
Well, it was kind of an accidental journey. I don't think I ever thought I'd become a politician.
Yep.
I had a background in teaching and in counselling, mental health counselling. And when my children were young, I got onto boards of trustees for schools, like a lot of mums do. You know, first of all, I was on the kindergarten committee. Then I was on the board of trustees for Night and Normal. Then I became the chairperson of the board of trustees. And then I got invited onto a number of other boards and working parties, which I enjoyed. Yep. And then, of course, people came to me and said, well, have you ever thought of running for council? To which I said, no. So I had a bit of a look at it, and it took me a while to change my mind and think, well, maybe I can give it a go. And I looked at the regional council, and at that time, because I'd had a part-time job in sustainable business, environmentally friendly business, the work that Environment Waikato was doing at the time, now Waikato Regional Council, was more aligned to what I was interested in at that time. And there was a lot of environment, clean air, clean water, clean soil, public transport, those kind of things. And I thought, I'll pop my name in, I'll give it a go. So I was actually quite surprised. In fact, I was probably equally surprised and a bit fearful when I was successful. I was like, goodness, here I am then. And so, then I've worked my way up through Regional Council on pretty much every committee: Environment Committee, Public Transport Committee, Policy and Strategy Committee, and then the chairperson. So it's kind of been a accidental evolution of local government leadership.
Yeah. What's the difference that you find in terms of working for the Waikato Regional Council as opposed to the Hamilton City Council?
Well, it's a different set of issues altogether, as I say. So we're dealing in the Waikato Regional Council, you're dealing with all the resource management issues, the Resource Management Act. So, you're getting stuck into how do we protect our special water quality, how do we protect our beaches, our productive soils, keep the air clean, get people on buses. Yep. So, so it just makes basically the difference is that you're dealing with a whole different set of decisions.
Right.
City Council, of course, is dealing with your libraries, your museums, your water, sewerage, your roads, your parks, and all those other kind of matters.
Is the discussions similar, though?
Oh, the process is similar.
Yeah.
You've got a chairperson or a mayor, and you've got councillors making the decisions. Yeah. You get reports, you get field trips, you get actually we don't have field trips at the council very often. But Waikato Regional Council, we used to get out and about, learn about the topic, and then we'd come to the table in a council meeting and make the decisions.
Okay. So in terms of the policies that you want to enact as mayor, what would be probably one of the most pressing ones for you? What are some of the things that you feel that the city needs?
Yeah, so I'll come back to rates because I do think that's a pivotal issue in this election.
Yeah.
People struggled very much with that unexpected hike that we had. First of all, it was nearly 19%, and then, of course, it was 9.8% in the end. And I know people struggled. But I'd like to come back to that. Why I'm standing in particular is about the how council runs just as much as what we do. I want to bring a more respectful, more inclusive council together, a more positive council. And we were making comparisons before with Waikato Regional Council and Hamilton City Council. And I can say this much, that I had a lot more access to information, debate, collaboration with the community in the Waikato Regional Council than I have had in the last 3 years at the City Council.
So why do you think that is?
It's just a style of leadership. I mean, I'm very much a collaborator. I'm a very much get in amongst the community and work with them and have them design the solutions. Actually, before that, have them acknowledge what the common problems are together. So you decide what the problems are you're tackling as a community, and you design some solutions. Yeah.
So with rates, because what rate are you wanting the rates to be? Because they're at 9.7. Are you wanting them to be
Oh, they've
dropped.
got yes, and so we're proposing the 3.8% going forward for 5 years. I wouldn't expect it to go above that. I would be very unhappy if it went above that.
Yeah.
I think we have to provide rate certainty, and I know 3.8% is a little bit over inflation. Potentially, but inflation's not the only thing that drives costs in our community. We've got construction index, labour index, transport index, all having an impact on the work that council does.
Yeah.
I'd love to offer, rates at CPI or rates at inflation, because that would make me very popular with the ratepayers.
Yeah. Well, rates is something that I don't think anybody likes.
Nobody likes rates, but, I won't promise what I can't deliver. And I don't believe I could deliver that in the short term. What I do believe I could deliver is consistent low rates as predicted, and transparency about what those rates are being used for.
Because one of the reasons for the rates increase that Andrew was saying was because we haven't managed our assets correctly here, and so the rates increases. Well, he used Waterworld as an example.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he used Waterworld as an example that it wasn't managed correctly, and then by raising the rates, it allows the ability to invest that money to fix things that haven't been managed properly, and then to invest in the growth of the city. Whether 9.7 is really necessary, I don't know. You'd probably know more than the average Joe would.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that though?
Well, I'm surprised he said that, because I've never heard him say that before, but I have said that myself from the beginning. When I became Chair of Community Services and Environment, I did a tour around all the community facilities that we have, from the crematorium to the libraries, the parks, the zoo, the Waterworld, and I was appalled at the state of the Waterworld, honestly.
Yeah.
37-year-old water filtration for a city of this size is pretty revolting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The flooring material was degrading. You could pick it up with your bare hands.
Yeah.
And all the acoustic tiles had fallen off. Now, we did deserve better than that, so I pushed very hard to bring the $10.4 million, to get the $10.4 million spent in that year rather than being deferred.
Yeah.
And I think he's absolutely right. What's happened in some instances is to bring down debt. Previous council, which I wasn't on, have focused on the debt, and they've deferred maintenance. They've deferred maintenance across a broad suite of assets, not just Waterworld.
Yeah. So how do you allocate the resources to the different areas based on how do you even structure what the rates increase will be in terms of predicting for growth in the city? Because obviously Hamilton is growing quite rapidly, and so obviously money will need to be invested back into infrastructure.
Of course. And we're talking about rates before. There's a mixture of looking after what we've already got in the city. We talked about the assets, the community facilities. But what we didn't mention, you talk about Waterworld and the library and the pools. Those are all the nice places that community can relate to. But there is sewerage, pavements, roading, and a lot of those need care and attention as well. And then, of course, we've got growth. We've got the big growth in the city.
Yeah.
And the ratepayer isn't paying for all the growth, of course, because the developers are going to benefit from developing the city. But they do need to pay for a portion of growth from which they will benefit. And that's quite huge. We've got to put a lot of infrastructure in.
Yeah. I know you're very big on tourism in Hamilton.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on this? Because Andrew, when I spoke to him, thinks, wow, Hamilton, it's an inland city. You pretty much can't have tourism here. But he thinks it could be a tourism hub. But I'm keen to get your thoughts.
Well, I don't agree with him on that count.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Look, I'm taking notice of a number of reports that have been done over the last few years and before about the potential for tourism. Hamilton Waikato Tourism have done a lot of work at looking at what the feasibility for tourism is in Hamilton. Look, they've made it quite clear to us on a number of times. We need to go beyond having the one draw card, which is the Hamilton Gardens, which is fantastic. So I think we'll all agree that people
the Hamilton Gardens are very good.
They are very good. And, look, all credit to Peter Sergel and his team for that legacy project that is going to keep on delivering.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So people come to town, they're looking for more than one thing to do. That's what we've been told. They're looking for enough to do that will encourage them to stay a night. So we really need a couple of other attractions. That's why I'm quite keen on improving our museum to open the back out towards the river, because we're getting a new jetty. So imagine if you could take a river trip between the gardens and the museum.
That would be good.
Walk up to the back of the museum, meander through museum, get to the hospitality end of town and, have some lunch and all of those good things in a package. That's what we need. We need something else to draw people here.
Yeah.
So the museum is our second performing tourism asset. The zoo is for domestic tourism, is very, very popular. And that's why I pushed for money into zoo development as well.
So when you say zoo development, what do you mean exactly? Like more animals?
No, more of a zoo-friendly experience. The money that I was able to promote in the long-term plan budget was to do with the opening and welcoming plaza to the zoo, and linking it to the Lake Waiwhakariki Natural Heritage Park, which is going to be open to the public very soon.
Yep.
And creating that overall experience of coming to the zoo and getting a bit more wow factor about it. Also, we're going to try and drive up some revenue through that by making the cafeteria something that locals can use without having to go through the zoo. And zoo patrons can use, therefore, maximising the use of that space. You're going to be able to enter the zoo through a beautiful plaza and a lemur experience.
A lemur experience?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That'll be good.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. What in regards to, so I've spoken to a few mayor candidates about this, but in regards to the river plan?
Yes.
This seems to be something that's gone on forever in terms of the plans and everything for it. Angela was saying when she was on here that basically every 3 years the river plan gets redone, or they re-look at doing the plan again. But when's it ever going to start in terms of, because I've seen the plan for it and it looks great.
Yes.
But it seems like it's always getting pushed and it's on the back burner.
Yes. And I think that's wrong. I don't think any mayor that gets on council should chuck out all the previous strategies and plans which the public have agreed with.
Yeah.
The way I saw the river plan, and I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I saw the river plan as a blueprint, a guide for how we're going to develop the river, and we need to start implementing that river plan. It's the one that the public bought into, after all.
Yeah.
It's the one they've seen, and that's the one they understood. Now we're talking about central riverside development, and people are uncertain. What does that mean? What does it look like? What does it include? What's in? What's out? And I think we need to do some. Both Angela and I have been saying for the last year that we need to get some clarity around that. What are we focused on? What are we working with the public towards?
So is there certain problems with the plan though, in terms of how the plan is, or anything that could potentially cause problems?
The biggest problem with that plan is there was never any money attached to it.
Right.
In fact, there were a number of really good visionary strands and plans and strategies for the City Council that didn't have any future funding, or very minimal future funding attached to them, based on the idea that they would be able to secure partnership funding as time went on.
Yeah.
So, we just don't have the money to roll out the whole river plan. We just don't have the money to roll out the whole zoo plan and others. But what I think we should do is go back to the public and say, right, what are the priority actions here around the river plan?
Yeah.
And on that note, buying public property on the edge of Victoria on the River, I voted against because I don't see that as a priority. If we were making hay while the sun shines and we're in a very buoyant uplift economy, well, maybe you would sort of grab hold of some opportunities and go further, faster, but we can't. We were talking about rates before. Yeah. We just don't have that flexibility right now.
So how much, if you became mayor, how much of a priority would the river plan be? Like, where would it be? Where would it sit?
Oh, it is a priority.
Yeah.
In the city stretch at the moment. Yeah. And any other low-cost improvements we can do in other areas. I am a great fan of, as I've said, opening up the back of the museum. Yep. Connecting it through by walkways and paths to Victoria on the River, past the new regional theatre. I'm very hopeful that will be completed on time, because I think that will really make a big difference to how we...
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been to Melbourne, I've been to Brisbane, I've seen how they've incorporated their rivers. And I think that Hamilton has a lot of potential.
It
in
does.
that regard.
It does. And on that matter, I was pleased to push for the refurb of the jetty down below the museum.
Yeah.
My view on that is it shouldn't be just a boring plank of wood jetty. It should be something that's at least attractive for the. That's where tourism is going to go. They're going to go from the museum to the gardens.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if that jetty was completed for summer. We've had a lot of pushbacks with being able to get a barge and it costing a lot more than we thought it would and so forth, which is really all disappointing. But I'm hope it's up and running for the summer so that people can connect those two wonderful experiences, town and gardens.
Yeah, yeah. Are you a supporter of the Waikato Regional Council? I mean, the Regional Theatre, sorry.
I am. Look, I was very disappointed, as many of the public were, that Founders fell into such a state, really.
Yeah.
There again, let's remember what we talked about before, deferred maintenance. Now, I know it needs significant earthquake strengthening. I accept that. But the reason it's in that condition in the first place is because the maintenance schedule wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
And the fly tower became dangerous. We had to close. The previous council had to close it, and then of course that kicked in the new earthquake strengthening provisions, and the whole project got a lot more expensive. I really do understand why some people are saddened by the closure of Founders. It's called Founders because the founders of the city gifted it to the city.
Yeah.
So I think we need to respectfully remember that. Having said that, we're at council wondering where we're going to find the money to fix Founders to a good standard. In through the door comes the Momentum Trust, offering $70 million to match up, to go above and beyond our own contribution and build a $120 million special theatre on the riverside.
Yeah.
It all changed from that moment for me. How can you walk away from $70 million of philanthropic money?
Well, unfortunately, some people have an emotional attachment to things
They do.
and they find it hard to let go of something. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen on both sides people that are for it and people that are against it.
Yeah.
So with the regional theatre, when that happens, unsure when that. I mean, I had Andrew on here, and he said it was going to happen. The last amount of funding was going to happen any day now, but that was 2 months ago or a month ago.
Yes.
And then I spoke to Angela, and she's like, "No, that's not any day now." But is there been any progress in terms of the remaining amount of funding that's coming through?
No, we're still waiting on a final decision from government as to whether they're going to put some regional development funding in there.
Right. Do you know when you'd find out?
No.
Or is it totally on them?
Well, it's on them, yes. Yeah. We hope it won't be too long because, we need to get some certainty and lock in budgets for next year and so on. But, they'll make it's a complex decision. They've really got to weigh up against all kinds of other projects across the country.
Of course, yeah.
And determine whether this is the project that's going to deliver the benefits.
It seems they are already investing quite a bit into Hamilton, though, with the train and with Peacocke. So hopefully that does happen. What would you like to see happen to Founders, though, when the go-ahead happens with the regional theatre?
Yeah, look, that is a conversation we must have with the public. I don't think it's one that council should make on its own. For all of those reasons you said before, there's an emotional attachment to the theatre because it was gifted to the city. Some people would like to use it. We've had a number of people coming and saying it could be a community hub, it could be an indoor sports hub for things like futsal and other people have said it could be a children's museum. And so we could look at those opportunities, but they'd all have to have a strong business case. Whatever it will be must be consistent with the West Town Belt plan that we just approved last week.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, but mixed use like community use, sporting facilities or green space are all activities that would comply with that strategy.
Fair enough. And what's your plan for revitalising the CBD?
All right. Oh, yes. Oh, well, I wish I could do that overnight, but I see.
Well, yeah. It's a big thing. I don't, to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's one thing that's gonna fix it. It's gonna be a number of factors. I do think the river plan and the theatre does play a part. But are there any specific things that you can think of or would like to note that would improve it somewhat.
Yeah, there's a number of things that need to happen, and City Council can only be responsible for some of that.
Yeah.
We need good quality urban design. We need more people living in the city, in and around the city, because that drives up the overall economy of the city. People go and use the retail and go to the shops, go to the restaurants, go to all the things that are going on in the central city.
Well, that ties back to the red tape and how high you can build and townhouses and public high density housing within the CBD.
I'm a fan of high density. How high we can go, I guess time will tell. There's a bit of consultation open at the moment to see if much more than 6-story high-rise buildings could be a part of the city.
Why was that even implemented in the first place? The restrictions on height.
Well, it's a legacy of previous councils, so I'm not sure why they restricted it. But I do know there are lots of factors you've got to consider when you go to high-rise. There's the geotechnical issues with the land. Can you actually put the weight on it?
Yeah.
But then there's other issues like shading and blocking views of other people and all kinds of things that come into consideration. But I'm not opposed to high density in the city. I think it will add value. How high? I don't know. Are we going to have Gold Coast skyscrapers? I think not, probably.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
That's,
so I think it'll probably sensibly land somewhere in between. But the developers know best where the threshold is for making things affordable for themselves. They've got a square block of land. How many houses and offices can they put on there to be viable?
I think I remember Andrew saying that once you get above 6 levels,
it gets very expensive.
Very expensive, due to the fertile land and it not having a strong foundation. Yeah.
But we have got some fantastic developments that are 6 stories and below that are actually meeting the needs of the city. I got a sneak preview of, not a preview, I got a little tour of Parkhaven opposite the Founders.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and those are fantastic.
Are they?
Beautiful apartments.
They've got the ones next to them as well. What's the London Central
I haven't
ones?
looked at those. I've only seen them from the outside and from the plans, and I think they provide for growth of the city as well. I think they're good for the city, bring people right into the city more affordably.
Yeah.
And the Parkhaven ones offer that quality in a city urban professional worker type apartment as well. So, we need a range. We need a range of accommodations in the city. So we get single people, students, workers, retirees, whatever, coming into the city for a lifestyle.
I did see that the Union Square development, which will be
looks nice, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah. As to when that's happening over the next few years.
Yeah. So all of these things you were saying, how to revitalise the city, it won't happen overnight because it's going to take several years for some of those things to be completed. But we'll see, we're seeing signs of improvement as we go.
Yeah.
Because, for example, the Waikato Regional Council are moving into the old Kmart building.
That's right.
And that will allow for refurbishment of the Hamilton East building, possibly into a mixed use of apartments and commercial and eating spaces.
Yeah.
As I say, Parkhaven is an example of a very successful inner city blend of office, cafe, living. I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm only saying that one because I actually went in and had the tour. So no disrespect to any other developers out there who are doing similar good things because, I think that's all what the city needs.
Yeah. Okay. Public transport. Now, obviously this train is happening. It's all full steam ahead.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. I didn't even realize I said that. But so currently it'll be stop in Frankton and then go to outside the base and then we'll go. Is there a potential for a station to possibly happen? Because I know there used to be
the underground one.
The underground one that's underneath Kmart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could that be refurbished to possibly make for another stop at some point?
Of course, there is potential for that. Well, yes, it would be costly. I was going to say there is potential for that to have inner city station. But, that all depends on the money, doesn't it? It depends who can fund that. The other thing with a train between Hamilton and Auckland is you don't actually want too many stops because you slow the whole service down.
That's right.
And, it's already an hour and 45 minutes, so it's not a fast train at this point in time.
No.
And that's always going to constrain it a little bit, in my view. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how many people do transfer from.
Oh yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see if it's packed or if it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the potential users won't know if it meets their needs until they start using it.
Yeah.
For me, I'd love to have seen it go to the airport. I think that's a real Auckland airport. I think that's
that
a
needs
real.
to happen. But Auckland needs a train that just goes from the airport to the CBD as well.
Well, absolutely. And that's what we've got to remember with any transport solution we have coming from Hamilton. We do get to Auckland. And when we get to Auckland, we're amongst their transport problems.
Yeah.
So they need to work through their transport problems.
But this train has obviously been a partnership between multiple parties, including Auckland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that have you had much involvement in that though?
Less so recently. Of course, I was heavily involved the last time that a train service was proposed, but it didn't get any government funding because the business cost ratio wasn't very good.
How long ago was this?
That would have been 4 years ago when we were at the regional council.
Okay.
On the transport committee.
So within 3 years, they changed their minds on the business case.
I said no. It's different government, different priority.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Different priorities for investment.
Yep.
But the National Party was very much focused on State Highway 1, and they did achieve an incredible amount of development into roads. And the Labour Party and the government at the moment, of course, is sustainable transport
public transport,
getting people off the roads. So that's the new focus. Very supportive.
Have you spoken to any of the public that plan to use it?
I bump into people from time to time who say they're so excited they can't wait to use it. Certainly Fonterra, for example, see a way of getting their people from the Crawford Street depot or the Fonterra factory up into the head office in Auckland.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all anecdotal at the moment. You bump into people who say, oh, I won't use it. It's too slow. It doesn't go right into the heart of the city. And other people say, oh, look, I'm going to use it because I can sit there with my laptop and have a coffee and a croissant and do my business on the way up, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a split.
Is the council, have the council talked about future aspirations with it though? In terms of what, like, let's say, for example, it was a roaring success.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas of how you'd want to expand it, besides from just other towns like Pocono and Ngarawahia?
We do have some blue sky thinking around that, and I think that's really important to push for the future because travel and transport's all going to change quite a lot in the next decade for a variety of reasons.
Yes.
My blue sky thinking about the train, I'd like to see it on a faster track, faster service.
Yeah.
If we could get it under an hour, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? That'd really change the whole...
that changes the whole game.
It does.
Yeah.
I think there's a potential to go east-west as well and bring in Morrinsville, Matamata, even to Tauranga in the future. I'm a massive, massive fan of getting freight off main roads and onto rail. That's another focus.
Well, that's also good for roads as well.
It is.
In terms of maintenance, yeah.
Yeah, so if we can get a lot of our heavy freight on a train from where it's produced to market, Auckland Market or Tauranga,
well, that would
port, that would be great.
Yeah, with the inland port that's being built. So that could possibly be an option.
Mm.
Yeah. And in regards to buses, this has been an interesting one because...
Buses.
Yeah, because I only found out recently that it's the Waikato Regional Council that deals with that. Whereas when I spoke to Andrew, he was saying that he wants to make buses free and for everyone. But I was thinking, well, is that a decision?
It's not a decision just for the City Council. No, it's for the Transport Committee of the Regional Council, of which Hamilton City is a member, of course.
Right.
And they have a joint passenger transport committee that works through those issues. Hamilton City Council is actually only responsible directly for the infrastructure around buses, the bus stops and things like that.
Well, that would make for an interesting...
It makes for an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to get regional council agreeing with you that that is a good investment.
And how do you do that? How do you convince them that it is a good investment?
Well, they've got wonderful transport staff there for a start, and it is about dialogue. It is about understanding the data and having a good dialogue about where buses should go and how they should be run. And the free bus issue is an interesting one to me because I used to be on the regional council, so I was on the other side of the argument.
Right, I see.
I mean, those ratepayers, if the ratepayers are the ratepayers, they're the same ratepayers whether it's regional council or Hamilton Council, right?
Well, if the Waikato Regional Council is the one that fund these buses, so that and Waikato Regional Council doesn't just cover Hamilton, it's the outer towns of rural areas as well. So,
but the Hamilton ratepayer pays for the Hamilton services through the regional council and through the city council in some way. Free buses means free to the user that's getting on, but it's not necessarily free because somebody's paying for it. The ratepayer's paying for it.
I mean, I've said this a lot, but when something's free, it's not actually free. Someone paid for it somewhere.
That's absolutely right. And that doesn't mean it shouldn't be free to the user. It just means that we should be transparent where the costs lie. And so I supported the free buses for those with disabilities. That does make sense to me. The total mobility taxis and the taxi services do a great job, but they can't meet the entire need. So this will give those with disabilities much more accessibility to the same places and services as the rest of the community. That's brilliant. It's always been subsidised for school students. But that has meant, and of course then the gold card holders ride it for free, not off-peak. Yeah. And so that means that the majority of the service is being funded from a user pays portion from that middle band of people who are neither students or seniors. They're paying a full fare. Yeah. And the ratepayers are paying the rest.
I mean, I see the buses empty. A lot.
Oh, yes.
Like a lot.
You know how many years I've had this discussion? Probably about 12. It's interesting because that's a perception, but the trend is for the buses to be completely full at peak. In fact, sometimes you can't.
So they are full at peak?
Absolutely.
And then just off peak, they're just
absolutely
nobody in them.
Yeah, that's why Regional Council had to put on those extra orbiter buses because the schools, of course, the school buses came off a couple of years ago. So the schools were all on those buses at peak time. That made it hard for commuters too because they have to get on the bus and compete with all the school children going to school. Yeah. But it's good that the buses are full. And the trend is for gold card users to use the buses during the day, and they do, but they're smaller in number travelling around to where they want to go. And people say, oh, why couldn't you put on a smaller bus? It's that simple. It's not actually, because then you've got two bus fleets to maintain, two bus fleets to register, big and large. Yeah. You've got to store them when they're not being used and, swap them around. It's not necessarily any cheaper. And actually, a half-size bus isn't half the price of a big-size bus. It doesn't quite work like that. So from my point of view, it's about focusing on transferring people out of cars onto buses to make the economy of the bus system better, and then you can add further improvements.
Yeah, well, this is a discussion or even an argument that seems to happen quite a bit in terms of the value of buses. Like, what's the most important thing, whether it's time, or convenience or money. And a lot of people seem to think it's convenience. I mean, I'm originally from Auckland, so one of the problems I had with buses is if you're in a bus and then it's in traffic and there's no bus lane there, then it doesn't really make much sense to be on a bus because you might as well just be in your car and driving. So when I discussed this with Andrew, I was thinking, well, I said to him, hey, well, can you have bus lanes? And he said, well, the argument is that we need to get people on buses first and then look at bus lanes. And then when I spoke with Angela, she was saying that, well, in 10 years, buses aren't really they're going to be redundant because of autonomous cars. I'm not sure I quite agree with that, but what's your thoughts on on how to get more people using buses off peak times? And do you agree with the whole nature of bus lanes?
Look, I think that is the next step forward, to have dedicated public transport lanes. I also Auckland has the carpool lanes as well. So that
Yes.
if you've got more
T2 lanes.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And I think those have got some merit too, because if you go down River Road as I do on a morning to get to work, I'd say 98% of those vehicles have a single occupant in them.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
So, that will have to change, because petrol is going to get more and more expensive. Congestion is going to be a factor, and so people are going to have to travel smarter. In terms of the bus lanes, yes, the Regional Council identified a long time ago that the next big investment needs to be dedicated transport lanes and on the key routes. Because I think you're right. I don't think a $3 or $4 or $5 bus fare is the key issue for the user. Is that bus going to turn up on time? Is it going to get to work in a good time? And is it going to actually go where I want to go? So there's 3 factors in my view. I agree in part with the autonomous vehicles, but we've been talking about the evolution of transport now for some time.
Yeah.
And it's slower than anybody expected. The technology exists for some of that. I actually think if there were autonomous vehicles, they might well still be public vehicles rather than small vehicles.
Yeah, I agree. But it's a difficult thing, because also I notice with Hamilton is there's a lot of roads that are one lane each side. So theoretically, you couldn't even put a bus lane in those roads as well.
No.
And I know Rototuna and Flagstaff gets very, very congested. And I think is it River Resolution Drive, I think it is, which are one lane each side, and it gets very congested. So, I mean, even some of these roads, if you were to put in bus lanes, you wouldn't be able to put in bus lanes. Do you know if, I understand that this is the case, but is Peacocke being designed with bus lanes in mind?
It's being designed to be bus friendly. Whether that includes bus lanes, I'm not sure.
What do you mean by bus friendly?
Well, for example, the northern suburbs were designed in a way that buses couldn't even get into the majority of those cul-de-sacs because they can't get in and turn around and come out again. So you need a certain urban design to enable buses to go into the communities, pick people up and get out again.
Yeah.
So that's the start. I haven't looked at the detail around the buses for Peacocks, to be honest, but I do know that key to the discussion has also been cycleways and walkways that are, that connect to the
part,
city. Yeah.
Particularly with Lime scooters.
Yes.
Now. Yeah.
I've seen some. Have you?
Yeah, I've seen some around. I read, I think yesterday or something though, that 1 or 2 ended up in the river. I don't even know how that happens.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even know how that happens.
Yes. Well, over the weekend, it's likely they're going to be used to get people into town and back, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's particularly good for places like Hamilton East that are close to the CBD, where you can just use a Lime scooter and be there in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Do you think I should use one to deliver my election pamphlets?
That would be a good idea. And it shows that you are supportive of climate change in a way, because you're not using a fossil fuel car. And young people, this segues into the next question I have for you in regards to climate change, because this is a very, very big issue. I know obviously in the regional council, they will obviously be looking at this, considering they deal with the environment. And a lot of young people are very passionate about this subject.
Yeah,
I know Louise Hutt is.
Yes.
So what's your thoughts on how can we help with the environment? How do we reduce? How does New Zealand, Hamilton in particular, play its part in helping the environment? I know there's people on the council that don't even believe in climate change.
Yes, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else.
No, but that's all right.
Yeah. By the way, I am actually going to deliver my pamphlets on an electric bike with a big basket on the front.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because last time I did a lot of walking and it takes a long time to walk as far as you have to walk.
Oh, yeah.
Are
you doing it on your own, or are you going to have like your campaign
I've
team?
got friends and
Get them
team.
take
I
a
haven't
video?
got a big team, but I've got lots of friends and volunteers through
Well,
Facebook and so
that's
on.
good. That's good.
And
It's about quality, not quantity.
absolutely. But, you know, it's surprising who gets hold of you and says, I'll do this area for you or whatever. That's just lovely. But Electrify NZ are going to lend me a bike I might hire it off them to go around and do my my election pamphlets, because there's some very big areas of the city to get around. But back to climate.
Yeah, go back to climate. I'll ask you. There's a question I want to ask you, but I'll ask you after climate. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So climate. It's an interesting issue. Obviously, I moved to declare a climate emergency, and that was lost on the casting vote by Councillor Mallet at that point in time. And we defaulted then to a motion that requires us to do a climate action plan. Now, we do already have the sustainability principles, the sustainability strategy, which does have some climate-related actions in it. And my view is we need to be getting through those with a little bit more urgency for a start. I've been sitting on a policy advisory group at Local Government New Zealand now for 6 years, and one of the key topics has been climate. And we've been advising government on a local government New Zealand position on climate. And it's interesting because that started off in the first place with a little bit of reluctance around local government councils to acknowledge the scale of the problem. But we had some independent reports done on, for example, the amount of infrastructure that's at threat because of sea level rise as a consequence of changing climate.
Yeah.
And it's an extraordinary amount of money for New Zealand to find.
Well, I saw there's a website, I'm not sure if you've seen it, that actually shows what will happen to New Zealand if there's, say, a 7 to 10 metre sea level rise.
Yes.
And in terms of, because most of our population of our country is situated on the coasts.
Yeah.
Hamilton, well, with the 10 metre one, it doesn't really affect us too much. But if you got to the 20 or 30, then basically Hamilton would be wiped out. But
we will be affected by the economic effect of climate change.
Well, that's right.
Because insurance and reinsurance is going to become more problematic over time. 80% of the world's population live on the coasts. Most cities are on coasts, actually. But we rely on an insurance market to cover us for disasters. Yeah. And, we can see there was a big effect after Christchurch on the insurance prices. And if there were further catastrophes, it would start to hit the economy and the insurance market. Well, I know that for a fact.
Well, I've read that and some insurance companies are just considering even just no insuring anything that's
below a hazard line and so on.
Or anything that's on a coast. I mean, that could become
it could become an issue. And yes, we're an inland town, but we're still affected by the economy also on that part. But we have a wonderful opportunity. We're one of the safest cities in New Zealand, so we should be setting up for success. Yeah. Knowing that, of course, that if our neighbours have some emergencies, they might be calling on us or coming our way, for assistance, or to relocate. Why wouldn't they? Yeah. But, we've got a lot that we can do within our core business. For example, I'm a great fan of sustainability and biodiversity and so on. Yep. One of my policies would be to restore the Gully Restoration Fund that the previous council got rid of, or reduced, I should say. It's not fair to say got rid of. They reduced it.
Did they say why they reduced it?
I guess this was all part of focusing on debt repayment at the time. Okay, it was a decision made about priorities.
I think it's important that people realise, because I don't think a lot of people get this, is that you don't have an infinite amount of money. Like when you allocate money to something, you're usually taking resources and money away from something else. And I don't think some people understand that.
Well, that's right. And that's where, as some of the other candidates would have said also, it's about funding priorities. What should we be focused on? But given that we should respond to climate, I think doing a better job of our green spaces, planting our green spaces, has double benefit. First of all, it's a mitigating factor against climate change, planting trees and green areas. The second of all is it does restore biodiversity in our city, which is also under threat. So I think you get a tick there. But we've got the opportunity. We've got a fantastic network of gullies. And so it's not like we have to find new green spaces. We just need to take better care of our existing green space.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we can do. The other thing we've talked about is the transport, is moving people from single occupant vehicles into either more mass transit modes, whatever they might look like. They're probably going to become more electric vehicles or other forms of
Well, it definitely
energy.
needs to happen.
It does.
New Zealand's under-invested in public transport for so long. I mean, you go to any other city or country in the world and their public transport usually is a lot better than New Zealand's. We just tend to... But I feel it's a kind of a culture thing as well. It's ingrained. We've been doing it for
cars.
Yeah, we've been doing it for so long that we're used to driving these cars. We're driving in our cars. So trying to convince people
get out of your car
and go into public transport is a difficult thing to do.
It is a difficult thing to do, and that's where it comes back again to convenience and reliability.
Yeah.
If you know you can walk out of your house, go 100 metres down to the bus stop, get on a bus because it's coming every 10 minutes, it's going to take you directly where you want to go, you won't have to pay for parking, all of those kind of things, you'll never be late for work, all of those kinds of things, and that it'll be a comfortable, safe journey, you'd do it, wouldn't you? More likely than not.
Are you, it just came to me now, but are you for more car parks in the CBD?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. The reason being is that I think clever management of the existing parking spaces is appropriate.
Yeah.
But there again, one of the things about our CBD is we're still a bit confused about where pedestrians are paramount, where pedestrians are the most important.
Yeah.
I mean, I say to people, well, name 3 really pedestrian friendly spaces in the CBD where walkers are number 1. Yeah.
I can't even think of any.
Well, that's the reaction I get all of the time. And then after they've thought, they say, well, Garden Place. Yeah, Garden Place.
Yeah, Garden Place.
And then some of them will remember that Victoria on the River is, a nice space where there are no cars, but it doesn't connect to anything at the moment.
It's so out of the way though. Yeah. Like you totally forget about it sometimes because it's obviously down here, like the rivers, the base of the cliff is here, and the river path is down here. So it's easy to forget about that.
Yes, it is. It is, and it is a lovely space when you're in it. It's very pedestrian friendly, but we need to connect it to something. That's where the river paths and connecting to the new museum and to the new theatre and the back of the museum will help because you'll be able to walk along all of that. I'm a big fan of our river paths, by the way. I'm still disappointed that we're waiting on the London Street slip to be restored. I mean, how long has that been?
Too long.
Far too long. But we've got a pedestrian strip between the 2 shopping centres, Downtown Plaza and Centre Place. You can walk through there knowing that you're sort of pretty safe from any other vehicles.
Yeah.
But Civic Square, I suppose. But none of those to me feels like really excellent pedestrian spaces. And don't even get me started on that shared car walkway thing between Civic Square and Garden Place. That is rubbish. Does not work.
Would you consider at some point making Victoria Street or a majority of it just pedestrian friendly? So just turning it into, well, similar to Garden Place, I suppose, where you could just walk the whole way. I know they're doing it in Queen Street in Auckland, but obviously we're not quite there yet. But would that be something you'd potentially look at?
So long as it allows for emergency vehicles, of course, to get down there.
Of course.
But there are towns where they've given more priority to pedestrians in the main retail areas, and it works really well. Napier's one, for example,
right
down that main street, and the cars can get through, but they've got to kind of go really, really slowly round what is essentially safe pedestrian space. People are out in the cafes, and that's fantastic. But it's funny how times change. I was thinking just recently about Joe DeMaio, previous city councillor, who used to own the coffee and gelato shop right by the Central Library.
Oh, yes.
And the battles he faced to allow him to put some chairs and tables to serve ice cream out into Garden Place. So things evolve, and the public have greater expectations now of being able to safely walk and eat and move around public space, don't they?
Yeah. There's been multiple designs, I suppose, or multiple attempts to revitalize Garden Place.
Yeah.
Are you actually wanting to invest any more money into it?
No, not at this time.
Oh, thank God. Okay,
No,
good.
no. But what I would say is that two things. If private investors want to come to the table and have some ideas, I think we should be very much open to that.
Yeah.
We should be good tenants in Garden Place ourselves, and that's why I pushed very hard for the refurbishment and renewal of the front of the Hamilton City Council Library.
Right.
So you'll see the smart office space is already there.
Yeah.
Still waiting to see how successful that will be. But also we've freshened up with that beautiful Boone Street art mural,
Yeah, that
which
looks
is
nice.
awesome.
Yep.
And it's all behind plyboard at the moment because the whole of the front of the library is going to be opened out to community space.
Right.
There's going to be a technology space. You'll be able to go in and try some new technology, plastic printing and all sorts of things that children will be able to get involved in.
Yeah.
And adults. I might give it a go. and it'll be nice big broad steps right down to the main part of the library. That narrow little ramp's going to disappear. And then what you'll have is people being able to walk past the library and look in and say, gosh, fabulous things are going on in there. I'm going to go. Or people in the library being able to engage better with the outdoor space and Garden Place and think, oh, there's a little event. There's some people singing or there's a display. I'm going to go out and have a look.
Yeah.
And we can control that because that's our building.
Of course, yes.
So.
Okay. So in regards to your campaign trail, so
Yes.
how's that been going for you? Like what's your campaign mostly been about in terms of how you get the word out there?
Well,
I mean, I'll be honest, Andrew. It looks like he's spamming like everything with his billboards. They're just everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas I know Angela's been going door knocking. And you've mentioned doing your electric bike run, and are you just putting pamphlets in letterboxes?
Yes, but look, I have been door knocking,
Yeah.
and I door knocked last time too. So the really nice thing about that is I door knock, and quite often people recognise me, so that's lovely. And they say, "Oh, hi,"
They know who you
yeah,
are. Well, that's good.
which is really nice. Look, I don't have a big budget. I won't lie. I don't have the resources to run a really big campaign,
Wow.
and I'm not being supported by any big business either. So I'm putting my own money into this up to about 12 or 15,000. Last time I spent 27,000 of my own money.
Wow.
And I'm really pleased and proud that people are supporting me with small donations. The average size of donations that I've been getting is about $200. Some people have been sponsoring me a lunch, $10, $20 through my donor box. And that's really heartwarming because then I know that those people are really genuinely supporting me but wanting nothing in return from me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to do a wise campaign. I can only do what I can afford.
Well, you're quite engaged online, and I've noticed in a lot of the different Facebook groups and of that nature. So which is good because some candidates aren't.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
But with your door knocking, obviously, I gather you'd probably talk to these people for a few minutes when you're going door knocking.
Oh, it depends. Some are quite happy just to receive a business card or a flyer and say hello, and
that's it.
Be invited to look at my website, and some of them are. The nicest ones you get are when you open the door, hi, I'm already voting for you. And that's cool.
Oh, that's
Thank
nice.
you. But some people do want to ask you some questions. Some people invite you in for a cup of tea. There's only so much of that you could do. Otherwise, you'd be, drinking lots and lots of tea. So I usually give them a good bit of time if they've got good questions they want to ask me, so I will answer.
Yeah.
And then if I feel I've run out of time for that, I will invite them to email me the rest of their questions or offer to come back at another time because you can't spend half an hour at everybody's house. It just doesn't work.
Oh, no. Because I imagine with your campaign, you've obviously got time constraints and you've got to allocate your time into so many different things.
Well, that's interesting because I believe that even though we're campaigning, we should be still at council doing council work. So I've been attending all the workshops as far as I can, and I've been attending all of council committees. And I think that's what you are supposed to do, because I'm still employed right up until October
Oh, yeah.
as a city councillor.
Of course.
So I try to fit my electioneering outside of council hours, and,
Yeah.
and that constrains you a bit too.
I think pretty much all the candidates are doing that, aren't they? So.
Oh, I think there's some that could be at council more often.
Really?
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, all right. But when you speak to these people, what are some of the issues that they speak to you about? What are some of their concerns, like when you speak to these people?
Oh, well, rates does come up.
Of course.
Well, all of the things we've talked about, actually. Cycleways comes up. People like cycleways. People are interested in the train. People just want change. They want positive change, is what I'm hearing.
Are they happy with the way the things are now, or happy with anything, or are they kind of in the middle, or do you? I mean, obviously, it's going to be different person to person, but the overwhelming majority. Are they happy? Are they want things changed, or are they unhappy?
They're unhappy about the large rates increase that was imposed upon them.
I'm not surprised. I'm not happy with it either.
No. And many of us pushed as hard as we could to get that as low as practical.
Yeah.
And politics is a game of influence and coalitions, and you've got, you can't always get what you want. I pushed for it to be lower and slower than 9.8, but I accept I couldn't get there. So it is what it is. I've agreed to the 3.8 going forward, unless we can find any greater financial efficiencies, which I'll be looking for. Yeah. So the rates is an issue. But once you start talking to people about what are the financial challenges, they do accept that. They're not completely opposed to spending money on their city.
I think the problem is transparency. Yes. You have to be transparent with people. But then also part of the problem is politics is a very, very complex, and most people probably don't understand the full extent of how it works.
Yes.
And often, and this, I'm not just saying this for just Hamilton, but I'm speaking probably for the whole country here, is you have to condense usually a whole bunch of information into these small little bullet points, like with a website or even with pamphlets, or even if you're doing a radio show or television. I saw Louise on The Project, I think, and she was basically condensing her whole campaign into 2 minutes,
Yeah.
And even with some of these debates I've seen, you've got a minute or 2 minutes to convince people, and it must be so frustrating.
It is frustrating.
And you must, how do you even approach, because you get asked a question and you've got 30 seconds to answer it or a minute to answer it.
Yeah.
And you're trying to convey these huge matters into small bullet points for the people, because obviously and particularly with young people, they've got about 30 seconds or a minute to have their full attention, and then they switch off as well. Yeah. So how do you even approach getting the word out to the public, and without it being spun as well, because some media will spin an article into a negative, a negative clickbait article, basically.
Oh, look, it's extraordinarily hard, but one way I tackle it is I'm out in the community all of the time. Yep. And actually, I'm quite lucky because I am chair of Community Services and Environment, so I attend a lot of community functions.
Right.
And then when you're in and amongst the people all of the time, you get a chance to chat and talk and understand what they're about, and they get to know you better, and they can engage with you. My Facebook page I'm quite pleased with, because I generate discussion and conversation about issues. I don't just pop up an issue and
I've been on some pages and I've seen you commenting and stuff, which is cool. So you are engaged.
Yes. So I use as many ways of being engaged as possible. Of course, I've got a website for those people who really want to drill down into the how are you going to do this and how are you going to do that. It's up there. It's been up there for 3 months now. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that. I mean, Twitter's a one-liner, isn't it? And that's a video or a photo.
Yeah.
But that is the sad truth, that some of the electioneering will come down to name recognition. That's where the billboard battle begins.
Well, I think particularly because there'll be a lot of people that don't really pay attention. Even with all this information, they don't really know they're going to vote for, and they probably just vote for someone based on. I mean, I know a few people. I mean, I've only been in the city for 4 years. I didn't actually vote in the last election because I haven't been here that long. But I know obviously a lot of people that have been have lived here their whole lives, and I know I've spoken to some people, and they solely vote based on a billboard because they don't want to do the research, or they can't be bothered doing the research, so they just see a billboard and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just vote for that person, which obviously I don't think is the right way of going about it. But
no, so thank you for doing what you're doing, because this is exactly one of the methods that we can talk more deeply on issues and people can listen in. And,
yeah, well, this is
learn.
why I've done this for multiple reasons, and one of them is a selfish reason, so I can find out what the policies are for each candidate. But then it's also to provide a platform for you guys to be able to get your word across.
And I always appreciate that. I'll talk to any group, no matter whether they're a politically inclined group or not. Happy to go to their gathering, talk to them. I've had a few meetings at people's homes which I've been invited to. That's really cool. Nice, because then you may have 15 or 16 people to talk to that really want to understand, and that's fine. I very rarely, I don't ever turn down an opportunity from the public. I think we're here to represent the public. They have a right to hear from us, and we should front up and listen to what they've got to say and discuss.
Yeah, totally.
The biggest frustration for me in this topic is the 150 words you put in the candidate booklet. 150 words.
Oh, yes.
So I can put my photo and hope that people recognise me, and then I can write 150 words. Now, I invite you to have a look, because they are on the Hamilton City Council website, although there's some spelling mistakes in mine that were not my doing, the staff error.
So it's on the Hamilton City Council page?
Yeah, on the elections page.
Okay.
And please excuse the spelling errors. Staff have apologised to me, and we'll be fixing that up on Monday. But, that happens. But, when you read through them, and I did read through them, I thought, there's a lot of similarity in here. Everybody's talking about rates control. Everyone's talking about growth. Everyone's talking about transport in some way. And everybody's singing their own praises and saying, I am the best, I am the most experienced, I am whatever I am.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting having the different candidates on here, because I get to understand why they look at things the way they do. And because I think also part of the problem is when people are emotionally affected. So if somebody enacts a policy and it affects them in a negative way, they have like an emotional, they respond to it in a negative way emotionally, and they can almost hold a grudge, and they because you control their livelihoods in a way, so they can't always look at things objectively.
No,
and this is obviously, I'm not pointing out any one specific thing. This is a human nature thing. We all do this to a degree.
We do. So
I try to make sure that I look at everything objectively with every candidate that speaks. So it's important, because do you see stuff or see comments or anything, and something has been misinterpreted? As a counsellor, you've said something, or
yes, and I go back to that person and I offer them a chance to talk with me more fully.
Yeah,
either I can correct it and or respond politely back, or I can give them my number and say, hey, I see that you have some concerns about this. Please talk to me. And they do. And I tell you what, that is really good, because most of the time, even if they still disagree with the vote that you made or something, when they understand the rationale, when they've spoken to you as a person, when they see that you're willing to respond, all animosity goes away, and then we're friendly again and polite. It is all about people wanting to understand, and that's the most important thing for me going forward in this election. Is I want to create a more positive, open council. I want to, for two reasons. For the public, our public engagement is poor. In fact, in the Shape Your City report.
She's prepared, people.
Yeah. Yes, I have to bring my notes sometimes. But it was funny because I opened up the first page.
So is this out in the public?
Yes, you can get a hard copy of this one.
Okay, where can I get it?
Libraries in the City Council,
okay.
or you can get it online. It's called Have Your Say. It's the pre-election report that the Chief Executive is required to do. But I opened up the very first page, and he says here, one of our biggest challenges is an immediate one. We simply must increase wider community engagement in the business of council and in the running of our city. And I wrote down here, yes, I said this 3 years ago. and, and to be honest and fair, I've been talking with Richard as the chief executive, trying to drive better community engagement and public participation for the last 3 years.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. This leads into my next question, because part of the problem is getting young people engaged to vote. Like I know Louise, obviously, as a young person, she's really, really pushing for this. But it's a difficult thing because young people are just so caught up in their old thing, you know. I mean, I'm 33, and I've only really recently kind of gone into politics within the last couple of years. Before that, I was too busy doing other stuff. So I understand that young people have a lot on their minds.
Yeah.
I know you go to quite a lot of the different schools, and you're heavily invested in that.
I have done for years.
Yeah. So when you speak to a lot of these young people, what's some of the feedback that you hear from them? Like how many of them are even engaged or know much about politics at all?
There is a strong vein of people that are, surprisingly. You look at what's happening with Hillcrest High School. I met at the Mosque Open Day yesterday, I met a young man who was talking about a group of students he's working with to increase democracy across all sorts of political issues, not just local government, but to get people thinking. Yeah. And that is something that's happening. We're getting some more empowered young people coming through the education system who are saying, right, I'm a thinker. I want to think about this. I want to reflect on what's going on. I want to say something. That's awesome. But so maybe we'll see that reflected in a better trend of voting, I hope. But where I go is there are organisations out there that do a sterling job with their youth, where their youth are already connected with them. Seed, Waikato.
I've been to some of their events. They're great.
I don't go to every one because I think it'd be a bit weird if someone my age sat in on all their meetings. But I go sufficiently enough to get an understanding of what they're about. Yeah. Zeal, H-Town, all of those kind of networks functioning. I opposed the binning of the youth council, but I don't think the youth council structure was probably the best way of engaging with youth. Yeah. But what I'm proposing to do is to re-establish some forums and hubs with key sectors, including youth. But youth would have to co-design that because they know how they want to be involved. They know where they go to be involved. They know who they speak to. They know how they want to communicate. So it would be pointless councils setting up a structure and saying, oh, here's a place for youth to come and talk to us. Yeah. A youth council, a youth hub or whatever. I think we'd have to sit down with Zeal and Seed and H-Town and others and go, you know, if you wanted to have a better engagement with the council, what would it look like? How could we help you to achieve that? Yeah. We've got this new comms manager, Natalie. She came from Waipa. And I heard her speak at the local government conference, and she was phenomenal. She also believes we're just scratching the surface of what we can achieve. I hope I'm back on council because I want to sit down with her. One of the first things I do and say, how do we get better public engagement? How do we bring your fantastic ideas to the table? Maybe I'll get the chance.
Well, yeah, because I think part of the problem as well is I think because people... This is what they do. You should be really voting on policies, but we tend to have this thing we need to have an emotional connection with the person as well, right? Yeah. And there'll be a lot of young people that say can't relate to any of the people in council because, you know, none of them are in their age bracket. Yes. So they're not engaged. I mean, obviously I've seen this year that there's a lot of young people as mayor candidates and councillors and stuff, which I think also helps.
Does.
Yeah.
We need a more representative council. I think we'd all agree with that.
Oh, yeah. But it's I suppose it's because usually when people are voting, the majority of the people are, 50 and above, isn't it? The people who vote in these elections.
Oh, there's a large band of seniors.
Yeah.
And then it's spread through from, like you say, 35 upwards. Youth do vote, they just vote in low numbers. But let's be real, the whole population votes in low numbers, and what's that about? Yeah.
Well, I think particularly with local elections as opposed to the central government elections, is people are a lot less engaged or they don't even know about it. Yeah. I mean, only recently worked out exactly. I had William Durning on here, who's running as a regional council candidate, and he was explaining to me the difference between the regional council and the district council, because there's so many different councils. Would you be for an amalgamation of the different councils? Because I've spoken to some people who think that it's a good thing, and the only reason why I say this is because I'm originally from Auckland, right?
Yeah, yes.
And everything's
got the super city going on.
Yeah. So you've got everything under one umbrella,
Yeah.
which brings with it both pros and cons.
Yeah.
But I'm just keen for your thoughts on it, because there are drawbacks to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually local government, New Zealand as a body is sort of going backwards from that idea of super cities and super centres. They're very strong on localism at the moment.
Yeah.
I have some concerns with localism if it means that you can be so small and local that you can ignore cost efficiencies and savings at a bigger scale. But I don't think an amalgamation is necessary at this time, but what I do think is a cooperation between neighbouring councils is vital. So that's where our relationship with Waikato District, Waipa and Matamata Peacocke is paramount, really, because, we work with them all the time. Our roads lead to their roads and so on.
Interconnected.
Yeah. So the Hamilton-Auckland corridor plan is important, that we agree on the priorities and we work together to implement those.
Well, that happened pretty quick.
Yes,
given the amount of parties involved.
Well, it didn't, because to be honest, I've been involved in that work for about 8 years. It started with the regional council.
Okay.
Yep, it did. There was Future-Proof was kicked off by the regional council as a response to government's plea that we all talk with one voice.
Yeah.
And I was part of the establishment of Waikato Means Business, which has now been superseded by Te Waka Regional Economic Development Agency. So I was at the front end of that argument, and I was also a member of the Upper North Island Strategic Alliance, which is called UNISA, working with Auckland.
Okay.
And those conversations have been had for a long time. So we've been weaving the strands together, getting agreement. Nothing happens super speedy in local government, sadly.
Why is that?
Because of the complexity, because of the number of people involved, because you've sometimes got to
So in this case,
influence government.
So in this case, let's say there was an amalgamation, hypothetically, this already happened. Then say, something like the train would happen a lot quicker, because there would really only be Hamilton and Auckland and the New Zealand Transport Agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't found Waikato District to be a barrier in the train discussion, though. This is all about working collaboratively through the mayoral forum and so on.
Yeah.
What I am in favour of is strengthening the local authority shared services model, LAS it's called. And that's where literally what it says is local authorities join up together to jointly manage services, to share the management of services.
Right.
And they've done that, for example, successfully with the renewal and maintenance of roading. So the same contractor, same standard, those kind of things, which brings in economy of scale. I think we could do more of that. I'm also certain that we could do water management at a more economic scale if we had have been able to work with Waikato and Waipa. And that's pretty tragic, because that whole opportunity fell over because of local politics. Yeah. So because Waipa couldn't get across the line with their elected members, or a couple of their elected members could not get across the line for a shared service.
Well, I remember, I think I just read a couple of days ago that the current mayor of the Waipa district is going uncontested, because he doesn't have anything to worry about.
Isn't that nice?
and that's part of the reason why there should be amalgamation. But I mean, whether that happens, because the problem is in Auckland with the amalgamation is some areas get all the funding and the resources, and others get neglected. So that is one of the drawbacks of amalgamation as well. So,
and that's one of the thrusts of the localism work that local government New Zealand is doing. Sometimes they feel that local councils are in the right place to know what locals need and to respond. And the bigger you get, the less you can respond at a local scale. So I think it's horses for courses. Sometimes you should join up for some services, and sometimes you need to remember who's paying the rates, and those are the locals. It's a little bit of both. And different towns have different needs, different styles, different wants.
Because what's happening, though, is a lot of these towns, a lot of the people from there are commuting into Hamilton for work.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So obviously when people are moving, they're not necessarily moving to just Hamilton. They might be moving to Cambridge or Huntly or whatever. And obviously they're commuting into Hamilton and using the Hamilton services, you know, that the Hamilton ratepayers are paying for. And yet, but their rates are going towards their council as opposed to the roads that they're using in terms of Hamilton. So I see.
Yes, that is part of the argument. And just to bring a contrary argument to that, just to play devil's advocate on that.
Yeah.
They bring economy into Hamilton because that's where they're working. So that's where they're buying their lunch. That's the company they're supporting.
Valid point. Yes.
So, you know, there's always, I mean, this is the thing with politics. It's not often black and white. It's actually shades
never black and white.
No, so it's all shades of grey,
yeah.
you know. And that's where having dialogue and debate with the community once again is important.
But the thing is, like, I mean, I go on Facebook and there's like some political groups and, you know, people comment and they try to make it black and white.
Yeah.
And
I hate those yes/no questions you get at candidate meetings.
Yeah. Well, and like it's a lot of the time there's shades of grey, but they don't want to hear shades of grey.
No.
They just want everything packaged into a yes or no, and it's like, well, it's not as simple as that. But
yeah, and that's difficult if you're a balanced sort of person like me. I believe I'm fair, but I believe I am a reflective and balanced leader. So I tend to take some time to consider the pros and the cons of everything. You know, what are the advantages? How does this get us positive outcomes? What's needed? You've got to do all of that. Most of your decisions ought to be data-driven in the sense that, you know, you should have some solid evidence for what you're doing.
Oh, totally. I mean, even before I got Andrew on here, I had all these people in my ear saying they didn't like him, blah, 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 saying all these bad things about it. And I was like, okay, I have to get that out. I can't let that affect me. I have to be objective and stuff. And when I talked to him, he seemed like a nice guy. Obviously, not all of his policies I agree with, or with anybody's for that matter. You know, you're never going to fully agree with someone, but I could appreciate having a chat to it. Because when you speak to someone face to face, it's a lot different than, say, watching a video online or reading, you know, a snippet of an interview that's been posted online or even something that's in the New Zealand Herald or Stuff, you know, and it's very easy for stuff to be misinterpreted. So it's a difficult.
So that's why, even though, you know, you and I have both acknowledged that the candidate meetings don't provide enough a length to the speakers, it still is really important for the public to get along to those.
Yes.
And meet their candidate and, you know, shuffle up to them at the cup of tea time at the end and say, you know, look, do you mind if I ask you a bit more?
Yeah.
It does help. And you get an impression everybody around council has got skills and experience and everyone's got nice aspects to them. But you can then see who is the person who most represents your way of working.
Yeah, I know. I encourage everyone to get along to the mayor debate whenever it is. September or something, isn't it? Yeah.
I've got a lot more meetings before that. So.
You have to check your diary.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I do want to ask. So when you're not running campaigns and you're doing all this councillor work and stuff at the council, what do you like to do in your spare time?
I've gone back to ballroom dancing. I used to be...
Really?
Yes. So I used to be a big...
Angela does dancing as well.
Yes, I used to dance at the same studio as Angela. And
do you have...
And she told me she'd used to be a dancer, and I encouraged her to go back to that studio, which she did.
Have you ever had a dance off with her?
We've danced it. No, we've done some... No, she's actually a very good dancer.
She said she was very good.
She is a very good dancer. I'm not too bad, though. I managed to get, distinction in my ballroom gold medals years ago. But then I was playing basketball and I did
You play basketball?
Oh, but well, yeah. Is that surprising with me how tall I am?
Can you slam dunk?
No. I wish. I loved basketball, but I had a couple of years of injuries that needed repair and surgery. And then I think it was the two broken ribs was the end of it for me. It was like, ouch, no more. But then I went back to my ballroom dancing, a different studio, but a nice gentleman who also wanted to get back into his dancing partners me. So that's really, because my husband won't do it. He just won't. He says he can't count. That's fun. But I'm a very family-oriented person, so when I'm not working, I do like to try and spend some time with my daughters.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, and I enjoy all of the activities of Hamilton. I was at a work function and a celebration, which was awesome last night, of Kote Pacifica's 20 years.
Yeah.
But after that, I went. My husband was at the darts. After that, I joined him at the darts and got to see the darts final.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm into anything that's going, because it's a lot of fun. We play a bit of garage table tennis too. He's better than me.
But it's good, like with having kids and stuff, that probably provide you with a bit of intel and how to what the youth are getting into.
That's right. Because my daughters are in their 20s, so that cohort, and I've got a stepson as well.
Huge advantage for you then.
In
some senses.
In some senses, they're my number one fans, of course. So.
Of course, yeah.
But so look, I'm a family person. I love going to the movies. I like it on the big screen. And
what's your favorite type of films?
I love a good drama, but I also like some of those really awesome English comedies, because they've got a really good sense of humour,
Yeah.
So, but there again, I'm pretty diverse with my tastes. I'm one of those people who thinks, I'll give that a go.
Do you go out in public though, and people stop you and start talking
always.
to you? Yeah. So like, even if you went to, say, I don't know, Event Cinemas or something, and went to watch a film, and you're standing in line to get a ticket.
Always.
Hi, Paula.
People are lovely, though.
Yeah.
They're never disrespectful. But yes, I get recognised everywhere. I could be buying.
Do you ever walk around with a cap and be like...
I could go in to buy, a pair of shoes, and the lady serving me will say, "Oh, you Paula Southgate?" And I go, "Yes."
I suppose it's good in a way that people know who you are.
Yes. Yeah. I don't mind. And look, that's public service.
Yeah, it is. It is. Comes with the territory.
My daughters have been used to that, because they come out with me and they think, go for a coffee or and guaranteed somebody will speak to them. But they're absolutely used to that. And if I am with my family and we're trying to have a lovely lunch, I will say to people, look, can I grab your number? If it's more than a hello, I'll say, can I grab your number and I'll call you Monday? And everyone's good with that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll probably wrap up there unless there's something else and specifically you want to talk about.
I do actually. Just want to talk about one thing, if I might, that has come up a bit more often lately.
Okay.
I'm running for mayor and only mayor. Right.
Okay, right.
And people ask me now why I'm not running for council again.
Okay, and why is that?
It's because I need to do things different and positively. I think we can have a much more respectful, inclusive type of council.
Yeah.
I respect Andrew. I like Andrew, but I do not want to work under Andrew's team at next term at all. I want to create a council where your full abilities are appreciated and that you're sought for advice, where you're involved in decision making better than we currently are. We've got some very good, talented people around council now, and there's some amazing talent in the new candidates.
Yeah.
I want to create a council where all of those people are valued and have input into the decision making of the city, but they can bring their blue sky ideas, their fresh ideas as well, and have those valued and respected. And I want to create a culture of better respect around the council table. I have seen the public come and present to council and disrespectful behaviour from councillors. Yeah. I know there is disrespectful behaviour between councillors as well.
Well,
and the mayor is a standard bearer, and I believe that if everybody's valued and they're doing something that they feel passionately engaged in, the council will be stronger and better.
Yeah, which fair enough. It's valid. Do you have any idea of what you'd want to do after politics, though? Or would you would you still stay in politics if after this, you were like, oh, okay. Worst case scenario, obviously, if you did win, then
Yeah,
You'd be
I
over the
haven't
moon.
got a plan B because it's a distraction from what I'm trying to achieve here.
Yeah, fair enough.
18 years in politics.
Well, you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, and I've been in governance for 25 years because before that I was on a number of boards, including Board of Trustees and chairperson of the Board of Trustees and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I have been in the game for a long time. I think it is time now to step up or to move on to a fresh opportunity. But I'm focused on stepping up at this point in time.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my 100% focus. I have things that I do. I'm on a couple of boards. I do some work for government from time to time when they ask me on advisory boards. I've just got onto one, a tourism-related one just recently. I'm also a trained funeral celebrant, actually, as well. So I've done a couple of those.
Really? Okay.
Haven't had much time lately to say yes to that.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I do feel...
Well, you have a lot of skills, so...
I do have a lot of skills. I do have a lot of skills and a lot of connections. So I'm not going to give too much thought to plan B. I'm just going to focus
on the mayoralty.
110% on plan A at this time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure everyone can respect that.
And look, I appreciate all the support I've had over this 18 years. I really do, irrespective of where we all end up with this. I totally appreciate the support.
I'm interested to see how it goes. Because
it's hard to unseat an incumbent. Most times the standing mayor gets re-elected. Not always, though. And there again, as I've said before, I can only do what I can afford to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this game of politics, if you have more money, you can buy a bigger, bolder, brighter campaign, can't you?
In some senses, yes. But I do think the age of social media has thrown a curveball into the mix if implemented right. And there are so many different ways of getting your word out there rather than just a massive billboard. Now, obviously, there will always be people that will vote based on billboards, but I think it is more than that. And I mean, there's not like an odds-on favourite. I don't think there's one particular candidate that everyone's expecting to win. I think it's an open playing field.
It is.
Yeah.
Remembering that last time I lost by 6.
Yes. Well, people, some people are like, can you ask her about that? And I'm like, why would I ask her about that? Like how you felt after it. I'm like,
everyone else has.
Yeah, but I'm sure you didn't feel the greatest. Although, if I had been in your position, I probably would have got a boxing bag or joined a boxing class or something to probably get rid of all the frustration and the of it, that it was down to the wire.
I knew the risk when I set off on that adventure, and I know the risk now. But of course, you put your heart and soul into it, plus a lot of money, by the way.
Yeah. Heart
and soul was the most important thing. Worked every hour of the day and night, just about. I was totally exhausted.
Yeah.
And then to lose by 6, only 6, 0.03% or whatever that was hard for that little bit of time. I accept it because it's democracy.
Yeah.
People said to me, does Andrew have a mandate now with only 6 votes? And I said, he'd have a mandate if he won by only 1 vote because that is democracy. STV might have delivered a different outcome because I had at least 2,500 more votes to be the highest polling candidate on the East than either of us got in the mayoral race. Interesting, isn't it?
Well, you can't always rely on polls. That's the problem because it provides it's a small niche. You know, people thought Trump wasn't going to win the election in the US, and he did. You know,
and that shows Brexit, social media, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Brexit and stuff as well. So, like, polling doesn't really. I mean, even with polling with Winston Peters, he's always. He's not going to get in, and every year every election he manages to get in, even though that he's polling low. So I don't even know where you vote in these polls. I don't even know where you go to vote in them. So they're
usually telephone polls.
Are they?
Yes,
That's not enough data to show anything, I think.
Yeah. Well, actually, I ran a poll last election. It might surprise you to know, but it cost me $1,000 per person that I wanted to poll. And because Rob was a councillor of seniority, so I thought, I was taking that very seriously because he has had strengths and following.
Yeah.
And then Chris Simpson was an intelligent, sharp, business-focused man who was getting quite a bit of cut through. So I only polled for myself and those two, and I didn't poll for Andrew at all.
Well, he wasn't even the odds-on favourite to win, was he?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I mean, I wasn't here at that stage, but like I just gotten here, so I wasn't up to the play with it. But I understand that it caught a lot of people off guard because nobody was expecting it.
That's right. And I'll tell you a sweet story that I bumped into a senior woman who came up to me and apologised about 2 weeks after the election. She said, "Oh, Paula, I'm so sorry." And I said, "Why?" She said, I think I'm partly to blame. And I said, "No, you're not." And she said, "Well, I did my form and I posted it and I nagged my husband to do his, and he did do it and he put it on the kitchen bench, but we forgot to post it." And I said to her, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's life and it happens."
Yeah.
But that's how, like you were talking about that emotional connection. She'd really wanted me to be successful and felt somehow responsible in some small measure, but of course she wasn't.
Yeah.
That's the life of politics. You take the risk.
But you've probably come out stronger as a result.
Yes, I think so. You learn something from every success and every failure.
Yeah, I think every whether it's a loss, sometimes you need the losses for the wins. Like, let's say if you win this election, you'll probably value it that much more because of what happened last time.
I think so.
Yeah,
and I have to tell you, it depends on the sort of person that you are. If I was the person to take the easy route, I would just be running for a seat on the East.
Yeah,
and I'm not that sort of person because I feel I've got something to offer, some really good ideas. People should look at my website. But I'm not that sort of person. I'm not going to settle for the easy option. I want to push for using my full potential for this city, and that's what I've done. And it comes with a risk. Yep. I know that.
Well, you've served for a long time. And you've helped a lot of people through the years, and a lot of people love you. So you should be proud of the work you've done, regardless of what happens. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much
with your with the election. If you do win, you're welcome to come back on.
Yes, we will, won't we?
Yes. I'll be happy to talk over everything in full detail if you wish. But yeah, so in regards to the election, where can everybody contact you in terms of social media and all that?
Yeah, so
jazz?
I have got a Facebook page, Paula Southgate for Hamilton City. I have got a website, which for those people who want to drill down and say, well, how is she going to control the finances? How is she going to look after community assets and those kind of things? That's all on there. Yep. So I invite people to have a look. Funnily enough, people don't go to websites quite as much as you'd think. But
it's all social media these days.
Talk about bumping into me in the street. Do at this time, I'm happy for anyone to come up to me anywhere and say hi and ask me a question. And my phone number is 021-0273 1398. There again, that's available on my website. And look, if in doubt, check it out is what I say. If in doubt, check it out. You want to know something? Check it out with me and I'll let you know.
Good motto. Motto. Yep. So that's the show, guys. Make sure that you vote. Don't leave it on the kitchen bench. So make sure that you get out and you vote this election because it's very important. It came down to 6 votes last one. So it's living proof that your vote counts.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yes. Okay, that's the show,
Thank
everyone.
you.
See ya.
Thank you.